and aspirations of the community. Both his parents, as it will be pointed out by other speakers, and in his obituary, were members of the African National Congress. Each one was involved in their own way. Their home was used, though their home used to be where Congress leaders met, in the small basement under the house which still exists in 15th Avenue. Nelson Mandela was one such frequent visitor during his early days in Alexandra. After his arrival in Joburg, he remembered those days after his release from Robben Island and during his first visit to foreign countries, when he, Nelson Mandela, met the two remaining sisters of Boy Mvemve, Nanana and Nomakaya, in Paris, and they reminisced about those days. Tom Nkobi, the former treasurer of the ANC, made the meeting possible, as he knew the family very well from the time he and other Congress leaders were still in Alexandra Township, before and after the ANC got banned in 1960, and even in Lusaka, where he worked closely with Boy Mvemve. Nkobi, as the treasurer, looked after the finances of the ANC in exile, and Boy Mvemve was the deputy head of the ANC in Lusaka. And we only learned yesterday that he's the head of the Lusaka office, under whom Mvemve was serving, was Usis Gertrude Kwashope. We didn't realize that. Ukutu Boy ebesebenza no Swiss Gate. So I'm just including that out of my script. And and I felt so elated. Ngoba ndiyabazi abakwashop, ndiyazi uSis Gertrude, ndiyazi uTata uShop. He was my shop steward at Steam Laundries in Auckland Park. Sisezintwana. History ababantu aba. Which means Mvemve, I'm coming back to him, had become trusted and was an essential part of the armory of the ANC's headquarters. The correspondence of the top officials of the movement went through his hands first, and he was the link to the outside world of support and solidarity as well. He was an obvious target for the enemy. His life and dedication to the liberation of our country inspired many young people from Alex, some who have been forgotten, and some who never even knew him. One of them was Comrade Mongane Serote, the poet laureate of this country, who also rose to become an MK commander in exile. Another that could be counted among such young people then is Ambassador Wedile Nhlapo, also known as Mkhize in MK circles, who belonged also to the group of people that worked closely with Steve Biko in the student movement. Ambassador Wedile became a close participant in planning my own later departure for exile with other Saso people. I also became one of the people influenced by Boy Mvemve, although I was among those who never knew him personally, but he influenced me. I had never heard much being said about him in the family, yet he became central in my crucial decision to become involved in the armed struggle. I will explain later. A bit of background for those who may not know what it meant for families when one of them or someone decided to leave for life in exile, or especially to become a member of the MK, Umkhonto weSizwe. In the case of Boy Mvemve, the decision was particularly of immense proportions. It must have involved his parents, obviously, his newlywed bride, and the ANC, which was operating as an underground organization by 1963, since the banning of both the ANC and the PAC in 1960. Nobody spoke openly about banned organizations at the risk of running afoul of the security police, the SB as they were known, and they had their invisible ears all over within the community, growing like grass in the dusty streets of Alex. Leaving home, country, parents, family, wife expectant of a child he would never see, friends, a job, and community he loved. He, perhaps, and perhaps others whose names we'll never know, took their hearts into their mouths and faced the unknown. They ended up in Lusaka, fortunately. Others would follow, including his younger sister Nanana Thelma, who was also to become a fighter in MK. That left their younger sister Nomakaya, who later became my wife, to become the caretaker of the aging parents, their younger brother, and the needs of running the family when she was still a teenager herself and needing care. The painful and unknown part of such bravery and sacrifice imposed on families whose members became part of the exile community is the following: silence, in capital letters. There is a silence that imposes itself in the family about their children, brothers, sisters, who have left for exile to serve their country in countries unknown to them, where they don't know about the state of health of their loved ones. A dark cloud surrounds the family and no one speaks about it. No neighbor asks about the sudden disappearance of family members, and the community knows they have not been arrested, as that would be broadcast by the local gossip chains. It was safe, but not these ones who disappear into the darkness of the night, and then a deathly silence is imposed on their whereabouts. If anybody does inquire, that person may be suspected to be an informer. Not even close relatives make an attempt to know, not even church members, where one expects comfort and counseling. Silence enters the life of a family, and I came into that silence when I became a son-in-law of the Mvemve family in 1971. I never had any mention of either Boy or Sis Nanana in their conversations. So I was nicely ignorant of the great sacrifice this family was going through. The old man had been detained with other ANC people in 1969 and were charged under the Terrorism Act. Among them was Mrs. Winnie Mandela. The old man, Douglas Mvemve, was 72 at the time, and like others, underwent torture and interrogation and was kept in solitary confinement, while his son and daughter were in Lusaka, boy and Nanana, aware of what had befallen their father and his comrades, as was the case reported on worldwide. Soon it became my turn to become aware of my brother-in-law as a force that would change my life forever. I had been banned too in 1973 with Steve Biko, Pani Pichana and others, and we were known as the SASO 8, and we were all serving that student organization in various ways. I got imprisoned in May for breaking banning orders, and I served my sentence at Low-Cop Farm Prison. I was also kept in isolation like other political prisoners. Then, one night, I dreamt of this man I had never seen or heard anything being said about him, my brother-in-law, Mvemve. And I was being told by another cousin that I have to go and join him where he was when I leave prison. I did not know where he was, but I came out of that prison determined that I would find him. That was the beginning of my journey into exile. I ended up never seeing him, at least not alive, because on the 12th of February 1974, he opened a parcel in the ANC office in Lusaka, and that was the last thing he did on earth. He followed Nkgopotse Tiro, also my comrade in arms, with whom we were working in Botswana as the first contingent of VCM cadres, intent on involving ourselves in the armed struggle. Our contacts with ANC and VAC and other liberation movements was being coordinated from Botswana, and Tiro was an essential part of it. That is where we subsequently met former President Thabo Mbeki to negotiate what form of cooperation was possible between us and other movements. As a result, it was normal when Thabo Mbeki and late Mendi Msimang attended Tiro's funeral in Gaborone and arranged for me to attend Mvemve's funeral in Lusaka. The man who had convinced me in a dream to leave my family behind and go into the trenches like he had done before was lying cold when I met him. He had left his newly wedded wife and his family behind on the day of their wedding, just like that. I found myself doing the same thing in September 73, hardly 2 years after we got married with his sister. I also got the blessing of the old man, Douglas Mvemve, to leave his daughter with 2 young children in their maternal home. And his wife was ailing and sickly. So it became Kayo's duty to look after the old couple as she had done since her 2 elder siblings had left in 1963 and 64. There had been no news from or about them since then, until out of the blue, one night, I phoned from Botswana to a neighbor who used to allow Kayo to receive my calls at their home and told him her brother had been assassinated in Lusaka. Barely days after Tiro, she had to then share the devastating news, the first real news about his son since 1963, and that he had perished opening a parcel bomb in the ANC's office in Lusaka. Then they had to take the painful decision not to share this news with the old lady, Uma Tlatswayo, as she was suffering from a heart disease, and this would have put her life in peril. That decision was not to last. The ever diligent special branch made it a point to visit the family and to tell the old lady during the absence of her husband and while Kayo was at school teaching, that her son was dead in Lusaka. The obvious result was that the old lady could not survive the shock, and within barely a month later, she succumbed to a heart attack herself. And so in 2 months, we buried Uput boy, and then we buried the mother. This is the kind of family that produced the person whose life we are celebrating today, whose remains are being repatriated to where he was born. The man whose service to the country, although never recounted in the established media at all, was covered exceptionally well in the organization's own information organs like Sichaba, remains shrouded in mystery like so many others like him, because nobody could read Sichaba in the country as it was a banned publication. So people in Alexander and other black areas were kept ignorant. The imposed silence was again laying throughout South African society for them not to know who they had lost. The family was unable to mourn normally. Neighbors were kept in the dark. It was like an evil omen that had befallen the community of Alexander, had emerged from some dark, deep gorge full of monsters. And indeed, it was a monstrous enemy that had sniffed out the life of a noble and quiet man, a man dedicated to discipline, honesty, and whose moral standards were known and respected by all his comrades. His comrades who had served with him in Mvemve in 1968 in former Rhodesia knew his bravery, which was recognized by the democratic South African government. However, we should not despair. Like him and others, we should pick up the gauntlet and venture into the unknown for the love of freedom and dare our hidden enemies to show themselves as we trudge forward in recreating this country, and fulfilling the dream of people like Adolphus Mvemve, a son whose family can always be proud of. Mvemve was awarded a posthumous award of the Order of Ikamanga for exceptional bravery by former President Thabo Mbeki in 2006. It was a most unforgettable tribute for the family and a huge consolation befitting of Thabo Mbeki as president, as he had not only worked with Boy Mvemve as JD, his MK name, in Lusaka, but had also buried him after his brutal killing. Meg Sisulu and Roy Campbell were the only survivors of that attack. When our current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, announced last year that all freedom fighters who were lying buried in foreign countries had to return home, it became the ultimate honor that any family could expect on behalf of their beloved ones who had laid down their lives for their country and humanity. I say humanity because the man we are talking about today was known in the circles of the liberation struggle as not only a national patriot, but also as a passionate internationalist freedom fighter. One of his last official duties was to honor the Angolan people's struggle under the leadership of the MPLA at a ceremony in Lusaka. The decision by President Ramaphosa for the repatriation of deceased freedom fighters belonging to all parties from foreign lands will remain one of the most important contributions this government and the ANC ever took for this country and suffering families who had lost so much silently, without much acknowledgement from anyone. All that is over now. We must look forward and create a new South Africa with a human face to honor them all for their immeasurable sacrifice and love of their people. I will always feel proud that I became part of the Mvemve family and could claim some affinity to such a great man, Adolphus boy Mvemve, a true patriot. Thank you.
Now, thank you very much. A very informative history, and we hope that the Department of Communication and Information of the ANC will get the speech so that we can distribute to the branches to know who the heroes that really fought and then died for this freedom are. They've just invented something that picks up my height, and then I hope the broadcasting live now I'm up. So everybody who knows that they've got a height challenge, there's something that will be stepping on. So with that, it's difficult to say to the elder stop. So I couldn't do except warnings. I kept on giving warnings, but he was giving us the man he knows because he was married in that family. He's still married from that family. And he was an activist himself, a reporter of the Rand Daily Mail at the same time, but also left for exile and joined the Black Consciousness movement. And with that, we have a representative from Azapo who is also here, but not going to speak. They are just accompanying their comrade and friend, Comrade Bokwe, as he is giving tribute to Babu Mvemve. So with that, then we have two last speakers from the family. Because I know them, they are a bit young, my age sort of. They can come, both of them here, stand where I am, and speak one after the other. Woza Babu Mlambo, no Babu Mia, Peggy. Nyazu, Babu Peggy, akakhulumi kakhulu, but ungangiphoqe namhlanje sengikubeke kahle kanje. Babu Mlambo ngiyazi ke yena uyakhuluma because he was there in 1976. He marched from Soweto to John Foster Square. I know that story. And then he got arrested and went to John Foster Square that time. Don't tell us that story. We know 1976 is Ingo Monday. A choir you will sing soon after the two family members have spoken to really give them a very nice rendition as they then close the chapter and then you go to the political program. Amandla, depending on your height. Go up.
I'm fine. Yeah, thanks a lot, Program Director. I'd like to acknowledge the leadership of the ANC, SACP, SAPS, and Umkhonto weSizwe military veterans. It's also important to acknowledge my family for the support and the cooperation that I've seen in the last few months since the repatriation of the remains of my uncle. As you've heard, my name is Mandla Mlambo, and the person that we gathered here to celebrate his life is my uncle. I was actually there when he was getting married in 1963 as a little boy. It was a huge wedding party. We were really having some great fun. Little did I know that we were actually seeing him for the very last time. Today for me is actually a bitter-sweet event in the sense that only two members of the family managed to attend his funeral in 1974. And I think that was one of the most traumatic experiences that all of us went through. But I would like to thank the ANC for actually heeding our call and making sure that ultimately, after 51 years, that we would actually have his remains here on the African soil where he was born. I mean, he grew up in Alexandra, and he lived there nowhere else until he fled in 1974. And I would have really preferred to have today's event celebrated in Alexandra, but because of the state that Alexandra is in, it's actually unfortunate that we can't do that. And I'm sure wherever he is, he's actually unhappy that the Alexandra that he loved so much is actually not one of those areas where we should be celebrating his achievements in life. I mean, he paid the ultimate price, and not many people were brave enough like him to sacrifice their lives for the love of the country, to see black people free, and to see not just black people being free, but being successful. I think the best legacy we can actually give him is actually to do the things that he died for. We need to reset the way we do things, to revisit the objectives that he laid his life down for. And I think a few things that I would like to point out today, because his history has already been shared with you, and I think all of you here know exactly what sort of a person that he was. But I would like to focus more on what I think we should do to honor his legacy. And one of the first things that I believe we've dropped the ball on is really having effective law and order in the country. And that's why Alexandra is in the state that it's in. It's actually literally been invaded. Even the pavements, there are people, mostly undocumented foreign nationals, that are living there. It's no longer the place that we had actually envisaged when we were fighting for the liberation of this country. I think we need to refocus more on ensuring that there is law and order in this country. And that is also evidenced by the mushrooming of squatter camps. People can actually build anywhere, do anything. And if you look at some of the beautiful places that we've had for quite a while, including Joburg itself, they're actually being run down. And why? It's because there is lack of enforcement of the law, both at provincial, national, and local level. I think that is something that we need to revisit. And the second thing that I really believe he would have still pursued if he was still alive was to really ensure that we revisit our education system. I mean, one of the reasons why we are unable to crack the unemployment problem, the inequality in the country, is because we have not actually redesigned or refocused our education to ensure that young people who go to school and higher institutions of learning are actually equipped with the skills and the knowledge to address the problems that the country is facing. And if at all we actually focus intensely on that, I am sure that wherever he is, he will actually be very pleased. And the third thing that I believe we should actually be focusing on is land reform. Our land reform program has not really delivered what we had anticipated before '94. And one way we can really honor his legacy is to make sure that we revisit that and make sure that landlessness amongst black people is something that is addressed as a matter of urgency. We have so many other problems in this country that we're grappling with because we have not been successful in cracking that challenge. And it has got those effects in other areas of our lives, adverse effects in other areas of our lives. And if we could actually get that addressed, I'm sure all of us would say it didn't actually die in vain. Those are some of the things that I believe we need to address as a matter of urgency. And the last one, which is actually very, very simple, the culture of really maintaining what we've actually inherited, what we've built, that has actually been totally destroyed in my view. We don't have that culture of maintaining what we've got. If we look at the infrastructure everywhere, whether you're looking at the hospitals, we're looking at the roads, we're looking at whatever, we don't really seem to have had that appreciation that maintenance is actually key for the success of any country. Whatever we have, we must preserve, we must look after. And once, we've reached that stage of doing that without even thinking, making that as a culture, as an in thing, then we certainly will see a lot of the challenges that we are grappling with disappear. And the last one, I believe, is actually addressing healthcare in the country. Once I believe we can crack these 5 things that I've just mentioned, then we'll definitely see the results of what he actually laid down his life for. I see my time has run out, but I thought I had 15 minutes. And 5 minutes. Okay, thanks a lot for just affording me the opportunity. But I sincerely hope that even when we have what has recently been announced by the President, these issues will actually be prioritized as something that we need to do, in addition to others that will be raised by whoever the participants will be in the national dialogue. Thanks a lot.
Babu Peggy, you can come. It's 5 minutes each person.
It's okay, Baba. Sanbonani, what's happening here? Right.
Yeah, speak to the mic straight.
Sanbonani, ngumzukulu waka Mvemve, ngubhekimia. Ngizothi namhlanje sumndeni, this is a celebration yokuthi amathambo kababa buyele. Actually, the people that I would say bebes motivator, I would like to quote ubaba umkhulu uDouglas Mvemve nogogo uViolet uMahlajwayo. As a family, politics nesimo sesizwe bekungazathi ama-choice ekhaya, because we were taught that from age 6, 5, 4. I can remember ngathi yenzeke izolo, the wedding kababa mayishata, whereby the special branch, they arrived, they wanted to arrest him. That's the first time that I knew about politics. When I asked my parents, I was just about 10 years old that time. Why are they taking Ubaba on such a jolly day? And I was told by Umkhulu ukuthi ubaba wakho bamfunela ngoba ufuna ukulungisa izwe njengoba singaphili kahle. That's when I started hating abantu belinye ibala ukuthi they took my uncle when he was getting married. And that has been a trauma to the whole family since 1963. Whenever sikhuluma ngaye besazi ukuthi we lost ubaba singazange sihlale naye ubaba omncane. Secondly, that is when ubaba fled the country and then no aunt wahamba. It was another trauma. We've never been happy in the family. The next thing, auntie naye omncane had to flee the country. So besesihlele nje sama street kids. The only thing that we could talk about is that the situation in this country must change because we've lost a lot of relatives by Ololaism. The last straw was when they detained the old man at 76, I think it was 76. Actually, at that time, I was already at high school. I remember maqala izinto zaka 76 umkhulu waye-admithiwe esibhedlela. I would say it, umkhulu was one of the happiest guy. I quote him when he says ndacho ukuba lezwe lizawulunga. Ngibonge kakhulu njengoba abuyile obaba. Ngicela ke ku family ukuthi stress sehle kancane. Siqhubeke zonke izinto bebesifundisa sona. Siqhubeke sizenze ilizwe lethu likhululeke konke besikudinga. Ubaba uboy usebenzile, umkhulu bemotivator. Ngibonge kakhulu nakuba Mafuna ngendlela asiphethe ngayo nokusimotivator. Ngibonge kakhulu futhi nokuye ngoba kule family sesisele nobaba ababili kuphela, ubaba uMkhothu nobaba Mafuna. Kumndeni wakaMvemve nomndeni wakaHlatshwayo nemndeni yonke. Ngizosala ngitshela ngithi masibambaneni sikhuphule izwe njengoba umkhulu nogogo bebelela izwe. Ngibonga kakhulu isikhathi eninike sona, ngibonga nakubaphathi. Enkosi.
Thank you very much. Amandla! Matla! Maibuye! Africa! Thank you very much to warm up the place. You are sending a soldier and then you show it that let's do it the way we do. Before I explain what's going to happen, it's just two special messages that are going to come, and then I'll allow the school choir to ready whilst I'm making the announcement. School choir, you can stand up and then start making yourself ready. But before you sing, we have a special message by Comrade Lindol Shope, who is here recently having buried her mom a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Mom Gertrude Shope, who died at the age 99. We're just short of 2 months to make 100 years of her birthday. But Linda Shope just moved and said, I cannot be here and will miss this funeral. She's here now. She's going to give a special message because she was in the room when the bomb exploded. So she's a witness. She's going to tell us through the message on the day itself, 1974. And then after that, we'll also get another special message, Comrade SG, from Comrade Josiah Jele, one of our stalwarts, longest serving member of the NEC at the time, who was a friend to Comrade Mvemve from Alexander together. They left the country at the same time. They grew up as boys in Alexandra. So they want to give that message also. She has requested, in fact the family requested, that Comrade Josiah Jele also say something. But because she's not, she's 97 years old now. Yeah, he is 97 years old. So he cannot be with us due to fragility of the body. So what then they've done is to ask Sabelo Dingizwayo. Sabelo Dingizwayo, if you could come and be on the stage. We know that the program started 20 to 10. And I see the police are standing. But we started 20 to 10. We lost 1 hour, 40 minutes, all in all. And that the machine, Reverend. Really, I lose 40 minutes because of the late start. So I thought you are now beginning to harass. There are still political speeches to come. Okay. Okay. All right. So we will then therefore avoid a lot of singing in between, except where I command. Choir, can you sing as Mam Shope is preparing herself? One song, not too long, because we invited these small children to come in this cold weather, and we just spice the event also. Yeah. Thank you very much, the choir from the school. Can we then get the message from Comrade Lindol Shope? The stage is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, MC. Comrade Fikile Mbadula, Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Masondo, leader of PTT in Gauteng, leaders, I think I heard that is the acting premier, all protocol observed, but more especially to the Mvemve family. Such a big family that I didn't know I had. I say that because I'm truly, truly honored for you to having agreed that I speak on this very special occasion. It's a responsibility I don't take lightly. But the reason why I'm also saying I'm so honored is because Ubaba Mvemve, we knew him as Uncle John Dube. So we used to call him Uncle JD. So from now onwards, I'll go to JD because that's the one I know and relate to. Not only was he an uncle to us, like many others that I will talk about very briefly. But we also went to school in Cuba with his daughter. So this is why this is such a special occasion for me, such an honor. And doing this a few days after we've laid to rest our mother, and thank you very much for all the support, brings back that bond. And when I was requested and really accepted with humility to speak, it just felt that that bond of that day in particular in Lusaka was being closed here on South African soil. SG, you know, this process of reburials, I know that to many, many South Africans and many people in the hall, it is more of honoring those who contributed. But for me and those of my generation, it is reliving our lives with them. It's for us, it's not history. It's not people we read about. It is people who looked after us. I did hear to say he was very loving. He was extremely loving. You know, sometimes would bring us sweets and those kind of things. You know, when you're in exile, there's no salaries and those kind of things. So a sweet was something really, really special. I just want to say that for our family in particular, having had a similar reburial of my father-in-law, that Edwin Makoti, I just want to thank you very much. Thank the teams that are working on. Everything has been really, really well executed. We greatly appreciate, and on behalf of the many other families who are in the same situation. Now, I just want to give you a slight idea of the life that we lived, so that there can be context to what I'm going to say, and I'm going to be very brief. At that time, I was 16 years old. And in those years that we were in exile, were very few children of the ANC. There were, of course, other parties as well, but children of the ANC were very, very few, and especially were few girls. And I'm saying this because this is something that I have been yearning to say for so many years. That in all those years, we were young girls, as the Nokwes, the Nkobis, and so on. Very few young girls, with many young men but older than us, the uncles or booty. But in all those years, the discipline of those comrades, not once were we inappropriately or inappropriately touched, not once. So, you know, the scourge that we're having of gender-based violence today is not something that's inherent in us. So it should be something we should be able to fight. But today, I'm 67 years old, and when I look back at those days, I am in awe of that discipline. The discipline, that's what we learned. Uncle JD are the people who, when we were young and didn't have a flag to call our own as a country, would always give us hope that one day we will be home. One day we will be home. And taught us the discipline, used to tell us what to expect when we get back home, because we grew up in exile, we didn't know whether we would be able to be integrated. But we came back. When we were in the Youth League, I don't think you could tell that we didn't grow up in South Africa. We were welcomed back precisely because they prepared us for that day to be back. And used to stress the importance of education. I had somebody talking about the importance of education, because they said one day we have to serve when we get back home. We are truly, truly appreciative of that. So now, going to that fateful day, I'll first say that in Zambia, we lived among the community. We lived in an area called Libala Stage 3, not very far away from the school where we went. The school that we went to was called Kamala Secondary School. Now, Kamala Secondary School, between Kamala Secondary School and the Liberation Center, which is where the ANC headquarters was, there was just a road. So you cross the road and you are at our school. Now, every day, what used to happen is that, okay, somebody did already mention that Mami was the chief representative of the ANC then in Lusaka. And then Uncle JD was his deputy. Now, every day, as children, children were teenagers already, we used to go to the Liberation Center to get our 20 ngwe. This is the Zambian currency, and this is for our lunch. And the 20 ngwe at that time was exactly enough to buy a bottle of Coke and what we called a local ban. Is that, in other words, local ban, but the locals call it local ban. So this is what we used to do every day. And then on other days, we would be going to the office on duty, because I'm sure the younger generation don't even know what a stamp is, but because there used to be lots of mail that is sent out, we used to have to lick the stamps and put them on the envelope. So that was a big contribution to the struggle as far as we're concerned. So when the lunch bell rings, we would run to go to the Liberation Center to get our 20 ngwe so that we go to the school tuck shop and buy our Coke and Lokopan. So on this particular day, the bell rang from school. Our classes were upstairs with myself and Taninga, and there were other children there at the school. Comrade Rebecca Ntenteni, who we just buried this week, was also going to school there. So we're running and going towards the Liberation Center to get our 20 ngwe. And just as we were coming down the stairs, we just had a huge boom! And the building was shaking. And we didn't know what was happening. But we continued running towards the Liberation Center. And when we got there, we realized clearly there'd been a bomb. Now, when we're in the struggle, I think we talked about families in the struggle, we are told every day about the possibilities of bombs, about this and that. But until it actually happens, it is just theory. So on this particular day then, we went there, we ran, and I remember that when we got to the Liberation Center, Uncle JD was there on his chair, laid back like that. The face was just black. He actually can't even remember that he could see a face. That was my first experience of a dead person and somebody that we loved so much. What actually happened is that, but Max was lying on the floor, but he was still alive. So what had actually happened is that Mommy, it was lunchtime. So there was, I understand, an activity at the embassy of the USSR, well, the then Soviet Union. And Mommy had gone there. So she said to them, when I make the JD, just leave, there was a parcel. We used to get, at the NC office, we used to get different newspapers and all of that. This one was written Korea Today, and we used to get from North Korea, Korea Today fairly regularly. So this was a Korea Today newspaper. So Mommy said, no man, you guys just go for lunch, relax, go to the Soviet embassy, I'll come back, and then we'll open these things when I come back. As soon as she left, but Max says, no, Comrade JD said, no man, let's just reduce the work and open this bomb. Open this parcel, and then when Mommy comes, everything will be in order. Well, the rest is history. When she came back, she found that a situation, and that ended the life of our beloved Uncle JD. Thank you very much for your attention. In fact, all I'll say is that for me, the legacy is discipline, discipline, discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Lindol. A very sad testimony. The family is crying, and I hope you find healing. I know it happened in 1974, but losing a person, you never say, I'm done. And then therefore let the tears come out as I saw you. Now the message from Comrade Josiah Jele. You can come Sabelo. Bacela ingoma etitina sizwe. Sikalela izwe. You'll sing it. Or should I? Okay, leave it. No, they just sing. They were asking themselves.
Tina siswe esimya sikalilas kalela iswele ilatatwa gaba mabauyeke mabauye kumhlaba wethu. Amandla. Thank you very much, Comrade Program Director. Without wasting time, all protocol observed. This is the message from Comrade JJ. I will just be. Thank you. This is a message from Comrade JJ. I will just be the mouthpiece. A tribute by his friend and comrade Kipusizi Joshua Jele. Adolphus Mvemve was a courageous fighter for freedom and justice. He grew up in a family of political activists and a home which frequently hosted ANC political gatherings. We both attended the Alexandra Secondary School where we first met. During political debates which the school encouraged, we shared similar views, and that laid the basis for our close relationship. He actively participated in many major campaigns. We were both employed in 1953 by Railways and Harbours Department as the first black ticket examiners, doing the job previously reserved for white people in terms of racial laws. Adolphus was fired from his job for refusing to comply with instructions from high-handed attitude white supervisor. He was brave and would not flinch even under risky circumstances. A trait he employed demonstrated during the Alexander bus boycott, when the bus company, in an attempt to end the boycott, hired thugs to intimidate and even harm leading activists. During the 1955 campaign for the adoption of the Freedom Charter, he became known for exerting inexhaustible energy in collecting the demands of the people to be included in the formation of the Freedom Charter. In 1961, when the armed struggle was declared and the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe announced, I recall Adolphus jubilantly singing, I quote, "Let's take the country the Castro way," close quote. He chose me to be the best man at his wedding. During the last day of the wedding ceremony, we were tipped off that his arrest by the security police was imminent. He immediately went into hiding before their arrival and subsequently went to exile, leaving his newlywed pregnant wife. He was devastated. Later, when I met him in exile, he greeted me with a hug and immediately requested for a photo of the daughter he left before she was born, which sadly I had not brought. Adolphus was highly regarded and held various positions in the structures of our movement. He attended the Morogoro Conference and participated in the preparation and impression of Umkhonto weSizwe for military operations against apartheid and Rhodesian forces in Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, the apartheid agents were gunning for his blood and sent him the parcel bomb that brutally ended his life. At the time of his death, he was deputy chief representative of the late Comrade Gertrude Shope, who was the chief representative in Lusaka. It is a fitting tribute for his remains to be reburied during the 70th anniversary celebration of the Freedom Charter. We honor and pay tribute to a gallant fighter for liberation, Kawe Lama Kawe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time is no longer on our side, and the plea is from the leadership that we need to hasten up the program. So what I'm going to be asking is the Veterans League, Lennox Class, NEC member, and Dan Hato, the convener of the Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans to come to the stage together, one after the other. And then the messages must be as short and brief now, just punctuate. It's tribute. Are they here? Lennox Clark, are you here? Okay.
Amandla, viva comrade O.R. Tambo, viva. Viva comrade J.D. Mvemve, viva. Comrades, all what we need to know about our leader, Comrade Mvemve, we are going to see beyond today. We are told we do not have time to go through whatever we have prepared to share with the mourners the caliber of a man and the leader that Comrade J.D. was. Nonetheless, allow me to share the quote that I believe best characterize Utatu Mvemve. It's a quote by one scholar called Horace Mann. Horace Mann says, "Be ashamed to die without having gifted humanity." We all here realize that Utatu Mvemve has given his life for us to be free today. We say to the family, we are here today and we are free, and we can attribute this freedom to Utatu Mvemve. Without wasting time, Chief Director, thank you.
Thank you very much. Comrade Den Hapo, the convener of the National Task Team of the Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans. Thank you.
Amandla, long live the ANC, long live. Long live the ANC, long live. Long live Umkhonto weSizwe, long live. Long live Comrade J.D. Mvemve, long live. Amandla. Mandibulise ku Master of Ceremonies. Ndibulise ku family ya Mvemve. Ndibulise kunobhala we-African National Congress, Comrade Fikile Mbalula. Mandibulise kwinkokheli ye-Azapu, Comrade Qekema. Ndibulise kwinkokheli ye-PAC ekhona apha. Ndingakulibelanga nawe Comrade Mbokwe Mafuna. Amaqabane omkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans. Namaqabane andizuba mde, andifuni xa ndisuka apha uComrade Baphila athi ixesha liqhathwe yinja. Ungasazi ukuba mhlawumbi le nja uyibhekise kubani na. So andizuba mde maqabane. Comrades, I think a lot has been said. I think all what we want to pass as a message, especially to members of the African National Congress, that this hero esizokuyibeka apha namhlanje, uComrade Ndole said a lot, the love that they had for the young ones in exile. They had the same love for us when we arrived after 1976. They used to call us Abo Qiniselani because we used to sing a song eti Qiniselani sekuseduze apho siyakhona. And they were saying that it is important for them to teach us that revolution is not a child's play. Mhlambe ubanga basicingile ukuthi besisiya phaya Angola siyothatha nje izibham for 2-3 months ayizokwenzeka lonto, because they also went through the same bona themselves, and they were taught that it is impossible. You need to understand the theory of the revolution
for you to understand why it is necessary to stay in the camps. Uzucinga into yokuba iintaba ziyasondela when they are not. So we were taught that discipline, as Comrade Lindole said, is a mother of all victories. It was heroes like our Comrade JD, our Comrade Josiah Jele. I remember when I was operating in Botswana, Comrade Jele at an old age came, and he was the one who gave us sources that we can use, people who can assist us in Botswana to conduct our underground work from Botswana into South Africa. So I'm saying to members of the ANC, and I'm saying this SG to say that it is not difficult for us to renew the ANC. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that it is because doors have been opened by us, by people like Comrade Mvemve, by people like our Comrade Josiah Jele, by people like the general that were burying yesterday, General Ramano. So it is for us to take cue from them, because when things were difficult, they never forsaken the African National Congress. Comrade JD left the country just days after getting married. You can imagine, just imagine yourself leaving your sweetheart just 48 hours after getting married, simply because you are committed in liberating the people of South Africa. So I am saying that these are the examples that we need to learn. We need to practice them, make them implementable, to say that when I'm appointed, when I'm elected as a branch chairperson, it is not about me. It is about the people that elected me to lead them. Let's move away. Whenever there are opportunities of leading, all that we are interested in is to say, what is in it for me? That's not the case of the African National Congress that we know, that we were taught by the likes of Oliver Tambo, Chris Hani, and all of them. So as we put the remains of Comrade Mvemve to rest, let us take an oath to say, this organization that these comrades died for is not going to die in our hands. We're going to renew it. Amanda! Amanda! Thank you.
Comrade Bopha kancane, Comrade Bopha kancane, sisazocula, don't worry. So before I call the SG, can the NEC members present and the PEC of Gauteng or PTT do the honor of standing here just behind the platoon? Yeah. So can you all go to the coffin? And then as the SG is about to be called, and then there's movement of people from wherever they are seated, we also want to acknowledge the acting premier, Ms. Tasmin Motara, who is representing the premier here today as acting, the PTT Funeral Committee of Gauteng, the Veterans League National Leadership, Women's League, Youth League Leadership, MKLWV Leadership, Alliance Leadership, President of Azanian People's Organization, Ms. Nelvis Kaikema is also here, and then the REC of Johannesburg, they are here, led by the Deputy Regional Secretary, Loisa Masuku, and others. Lastly, that Alexander Zone 13, who came in their own big numbers, I understand, they are also here to say farewell to the comrade. With that, Comrade SG, so you are called to the stage. Mvemve bega khona, Mvemve bega khona, Mvemve bega khona, Mvemve bega khona, Mzabalazwe, Mzabalazwe, Mzabalazwe.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Program Director, Comrade Obed Bapela, member of the National Executive Committee and a seasoned activist and a cadre also from Alexander. Comrades Mvemve family, Utatu Pokwe, our stalwart and veteran, gave us a good education today, which I think most members of the ANC and the public in general got educated about the life and times of the person we are going to bid farewell and celebrate his life here today. Sibulela kakhulu ngamava and education and history you have given us here today about the life and times of our beloved comrade. The family members who spoke here today, we take lessons. Comrade Sis Lindwall, the moment and the exile experience was a good lesson to all of us here today, and we appreciate that. And the entire family, abantwana, otadwethu, izizukulwana, omalume, otamkhulu, all present here today. Sibamba ngazibini, singumbutho wesizwe, we-African National Congress. Acting Premier of the Gauteng Province, Comrade Tasnim Mutara, on behalf of the Premier, members of the Executive Council of Gauteng Province, National Convener of the MK Liberation War Veterans, ministers and members of Parliament and Gauteng and Provincial Legislature. I know the President would have loved to be here as well today to deliver the message on behalf of government. The President is traveling to Canada for the G7 meeting, and he left last night to Canada. And I know the Deputy President as well, if he was not committed elsewhere on government responsibilities, Comrade Paul would have loved to be here. And comrades, on behalf of the ANC, we are here. Members of the National Executive Committee present here, members of the provincial task team led by Uput Ambi, and all our structures and members of Umkhonto Wesizwe in the different generations present here today. Members of the clergy, our chaplaincy present here today, distinguished guests, comrades and friends. Today we work on the sense of time, honoring a combatant, a revolutionary of our movement, who walked unflinchingly into the eye of the storm of our liberation struggle. This is a comrade whose life was a testament to courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to the liberation of our people from the bondages of apartheid. We are here to pay tribute to a foot soldier of our revolution, who was a beacon of hope in the darkest hours of apartheid tyranny. It is fitting that Comrade Mvemve's burial takes place on the eve of June 16, the National Youth Day, when we remember the sacrifices of young people, many of whom paid the ultimate price with their lives in pursuit of our freedom. Comrade Mvemve's journey, Comrade JD Nomdikwere, John Dube, into the hearts of the liberation movement began in the 1950s, when he joined the ANC and became a fiery voice in the ANC Youth League as the Alexander Township Branch Secretary. He stood on the front lines of history, organizing the 1957 Alexander Bus boycott, marching in the shadows of the Freedom Charter, and mobilizing masses during the 1959 potato boycott and the 1960 anti-pass campaigns. His life was a life lived in service of the people, a life that refused to be cowed into submission by apartheid brutality. Today we lay to rest the mortal remains of yet another revolutionary, whose name cannot be mentioned without mentioning Comrade Florence Muposho, who hailed from the same township of Alexander as Comrade Mvemve did. This poignant moment in our history, when we advance the renewal of our movement in the face of the 2024 strategic setback, is unfailing like blossoming flower giving nectar to worker bees to make honeycombs. Bringing home the mortal remain of our combatants who fell in foreign lands is an important cog in our rebuilding and renewal programs. In celebrating their lives, the values they embodied must spur our forward momentum. Their spirits are like a blossoming flower that nourishes our movement and give us the energy and tools to advance the national democratic revolution. Even as apartheid machinery tightened its grip, harassing, jailing, and hunting down activists, Comrade Adolphus remained undeterred. He addressed crowds knowing the risk, state consciousness knowing the costs, and when the net closed around him, he made the agonizing choice to leave behind a life he knew, including his wife, shortly after their wedding, going into exile to continue the fight. His love for his people was greater than the life he might have built. His faith in freedom stronger than fear. In Zambia, under the combat name John Dube, he served as ANC's deputy chief representative, a target of the regime's brutality. On that fateful day in 1974, as he sorted through mail in a quiet Lusaka office, apartheid's cowardice found him. A book, a bomb, instantly stolen his life. At 43, his hands, which had held the hopes of so many, were taken. His face, which had smiled in defiance, was silenced. Yet his death was not a surrender. It was an indictment of the brutality he had spent his life resisting. President Oliver Tambo, then acting president, marked Comrade Mvemve's assassination as a moment when the apartheid regime's violence reached new depths. But President Tambo also knew comrades like Comrade Mvemve, Comrade JD could not be erased. Today we remember him not as a victim but as a victor. A man who chose the battlefield over the quietude of safety. A revolutionary who understood that liberation was worth every sacrifice. His legacy lives in the streets of Alexander, where he organized, in the constitution of our beautiful land that now gives expression to freedom, equality, non-racialism, and non-sexism. His legacy continues to live on in the unyielding spirit of those who put their shoulders behind the wheel in order to make a better life for all, a lived reality for all our people. The method employed to assassinate Comrade JD was the modus operandi of a callous regime, sending parcel or a letter bomb, killing the likes of Comrade Ruth First in 1982 in Maputo, Mozambique, and seriously injuring others such as Father Michael Lapsi in 1919 Harare, Zimbabwe, an Anglican priest who lost his limbs and partial eyesight to a letter bomb. Yet all these dastardly deeds were precisely because they were in fact afraid of the fearless master tacticians such as Comrade J.D. Mvemve. As we lay to rest the mortal remains of Comrade Adolphus Boy Mvemve, we are reminded that our freedom was not free. It came at a huge cost. Assassination tactics were calculated to create an illusion of a brutal state machinery whose tentacles would reach our combatants even in exile, while instilling fear in the hearts of our comrades. It was for this reason, comrades, that the regime desperately raided Lesotho, because they sought to kill Chris Hani, yet failed. It was for the same reason they raided Botswana and killed innocent people. Again, it was why they ambushed a hideout of the ANC in Matola in Mozambique and killed many of our combatants. The humiliating defeat of the apartheid forces at Quito, Cuanavale in Angola, as a result of the combined counter-assault by the Angolan, Cuban People's Liberation Army of Namibia and MK soldiers, was another case in point. Today, as we lay the mortal remains of Comrade JD in his final resting place, we must be resolute in ensuring that the unity of our movement remains the principal driver towards the realization of a democratic society, grounded on the ideals that Comrade J.D. Mvemve, Boy Adolphus, and his generation valiantly fought for. Heroes of the masses of the people never die, comrades, as the Scottish poet Thomas Campbell once observed. Comrade Adolphus continues to live on through the legacy of freedom and democracy. The struggle is not over. As the ANC, we are the first to admit that the historic mission to create a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society remains incomplete. We must redouble our efforts and recommit ourselves to the ideals that inspire his generation, as enshrined in the Freedom Charter, whose 70th anniversary milestone we're celebrating this year and this month. We draw inspiration from comrades
of Mvemve's selfless struggle to recommit ourselves to building a stronger organization, in spite of challenges that include havoc wreaked by those who seek to sow seeds of division. As the ANC, we are committed to organizational renewal as a bedrock to inspire the kind of selfless leadership that Comrade JD espoused until he paid the ultimate price for our freedom and democracy. As the ANC will continue to honor our stalwarts, whose selfless dedication and immense contribution to our liberation struggle delivered the freedom we enjoy today. As I conclude, allow me to reiterate that heroes of the masses of the people do not die. As we concur with Thomas Campbell when he asserted that to live in hearts we leave behind, what we leave behind is not to die. Heroes live in the hearts and minds of those who inherited what they fought for. Comrade Adolphus, Boy Mvemve, Nom Dikwere, John Dube lives on. Today we are here not to bury him, but to celebrate his life, but to declare his immortal contributions to the shared values of a just society. Comrade JD will never die because his life was intrinsically weaved into the fabric of all generations that came after him. We are profoundly grateful to his family for allowing us to pay our respects to this gallant revolutionary who loved his people without reservation and served them till the end. Whilst the apartheid regime hunted him down like a fugitive until it cowardly killed him, our democratic government has posthumously honored him with the Presidential Award of the Order of Ikamanga for displaying acts of bravery during the struggle against apartheid, and therefore rightfully a hero of our people. We are grateful to the TRC's Missing Persons Task Team, who located his grave in November 2023 among 42 graves identified in Lusaka and Livingstone, and all the efforts conducted until the exhumation was done and accordingly repatriated from Zambia in September 2024. Rest well, Comrade JD, the hero of our people. Your fallen spear shall forever be firmly in the hands of the many generations that will ensure your spirit lives on. Like Solomon Mahlangu and many other martyrs, your blood too nourished the tree that bore the fruits of our freedom, which fruits we must continue to jealously protect at all costs. Your hands may have been taken, but your work remains. Your voice may have been silenced, but your echo rose loud like a thunder. Hamba kahle mkhonto, hamba kahle qhawe lamaqhawe. Amandla, Mata, Matimba. Long live the spirit of Comrade Adolphus Boy Mvemve, long live. Amandla. Pata Kongolo se pata. Kokela matamela kokela. Pagama Gauteng pagama. Pagama Gauteng pagama. My booyah in Johannesburg, my booyah. My booyah in Pretoria, my booyah. My booyah in Ekurhuleni, my booyah. Aluta.
Comrades, due to time, we are not suppressing. At the funeral, at the graveside, we'll sing a lot, don't worry, to send our hero. At this juncture, we'll call the MK platoon to come back, do the flag ceremony, but as they do so, we'll ask a reading of the obituary, which will be done by Unonzigalelo Mafuna. Unonzigalelo, walk to the stage, the platoon come and then remove the flag as obituary is about to be read. Nifunuguza after obituary is fine. Thank you, comrades. Can we proceed with the program now? And thank you very much, the platoon of Mkonto, for reviving the spirit. Comrade Mvemve is happy. He is very, very happy as a soldier. Now the people are going to do the flag removal at the coffin. They will not do that until after the reading of the obituary. Can we sit and listen to the obituary? But in fact, let's stand up and observe the reading of the obituary. And no noise. And the school choir can hum the song Tina Bantwana Besizwe. Hum it, don't shout it, so that we can hear the obituary. You can start.
Please allow me to read the obituary. Yes. In loving memory of Mr. Adolphus Mvemve. Adolphus Mvemve was born on 15 February 1931 to Violet Mvemve Nehlajwayo and Douglas Machechi Mvemve. He was the second born among 12 children who were born in Alexander Township, Johannesburg. Both his parents were involved in the dominant political movement of the time, the African National Congress. His mother was a leading member of the Women's League. This contributed greatly towards the later involvement of their children in politics. After attending primary school, he enrolled at Alexander Secondary School, where he obtained his junior secondary certificate. He started his working career as a ticket examiner of South African Railways and later as a clothing store assistant in Johannesburg. Mvemve got involved in the work of the ANC in Alexander, where he became secretary of the Youth League. He worked with people such as Mike Dingake and Florence Maposho from the period before the launch of the Freedom Charter in 1955 and the Defiance Campaign until the banning of both the ANC and PAC in 1960. This happened after the Sharpeville massacre in March 1960. It was then that Mvemve and others started working underground and were among the first recruits of Umkhonto weSizwe, the armed wing of the ANC, which was established December 1961. Mvemve was investigated by the special branch who intended to detain him under the 90 days detention legislation of the time. On the day of his wedding in 1963, they were present but could not detain him, unlike his elderly father, who got detained under the notorious Suppression of Communism Act with other ANC members, including Winnie Mandela in 1969. He was kept in solitary confinement for months until they are discharged by the Supreme Court of Pretoria, after being released and detained again. The old Mvemve was 72 years old when he was released. He was then served with banning orders for 5 years, which included house arrest. Adolphus Mvemve fled on the same night to avoid detention, leaving his newly wedded wife, Nomkosi Khatebe, who was expecting their first and only child. He went into exile through Botswana and finally into Zambia. Mvemve later attended the Leningrad Military Academy in Moscow, where he trained as an officer. Mvemve also fought with distinction during the Wankie campaign of 1967-1968, a combined operation between ANC ZAPU forces in the then Rhodesia. Mvemve was known as John Dube in Umkhonto weSizwe, or JD. He became popular among his comrades and rose quickly to assume senior ranks within the organization. He was appointed Deputy Chief Representative of the ANC in Zambia. It is also significant that one of his last public functions was in his role as a representative of the ANC at a commemoration meeting in Lusaka, held to mark the 30th anniversary of the armed struggle of the MPLA in Angola. A few days later, on the 12th February 1974, Boy Mvemve died from a parcel bomb explosion at the ANC's office. The explosion left Maxi Sulu and Roy Campbell, who were present in the office, with injuries. The bomb was meant for one person, the head of the office, who was responsible for opening incoming mail. Thus, the life of the courageous combatant ended thousands of miles away from home and family. Present to bury him was his younger sister, Nanana, aka Kasta, in the MK, who had also left the country in 1964 to join Umkhonto weSizwe. She too had got her military training in the Soviet Union. He never saw his daughter Nozizwe, who later also became a member of the armed struggle. She later served in the intelligence services of the Democratic Dispensation until she passed on. At the graveside where JD's remains were laid to rest, the acting president of the ANC, Comrade Owal Tambo, and the Honorable Minister in the Zambian Ministry of Defense, Major General Kingsley Chikuli, were the main speakers. Moses Mabida of the ANC Executive Committee also addressed the gathering. In 2006, Mvemve was awarded the Presidential Award of the Order of Ikamanga for displaying acts of bravery during the struggle against apartheid. His grave was rediscovered by the TRC's Missing Person Task Team in November 2023 and was among the 42 graves identified in Lusaka and Livingstone mapped for exhumation in 2024. His remains were repatriated from Zambia in September 2024, along with other liberation fighters from different movements. Here lies a man who dedicated his life to his country. He is survived by his two sisters, Nanana and Nomakaya. Here lies a man who died with his boots on in the service of his country, killed by an enemy parcel bomb. He lives in our hearts forever. Lala ngoxolo manci zotsho.
Thank you very much. You can be seated. Can we then get the removal of the flag ceremony? And my chapter ends here as a program director. After that, the state will take over, and Reverend Mashiani will be the one directing the next program. Can the flag be removed? The SG, you'll be receiving the flag, and then you will give it to the appointed family person, Ms. Carlo, who will then be receiving the flag. The flag now folded. It will be handed to the SG of the ANC, Comrade Fikile Mbalula. The SG is handing it over to Miss Carlo Mafuna, the sister to Mvemve, the one that we are reburying today. On behalf of the family, I hope you will hang it nicely in a frame so that it hangs in the house for generations to come to see what their grandfather, their great-grandfather, their father did as part of the contribution in the struggle. I'll now call Reverend Mashiani to take over the ceremony. I'll only come back later around announcements before we depart. So thank you very much. The chaplains of the South African Police in Gauteng.
We are now starting with an official funeral that was approved by the President of the Republic of South Africa. Let me make this announcement. All cars parked at Helen Joseph Street, west side of the hall, to be removed so that we can start with our own program. And then when we are starting with an official funeral, please let us respect the national flag of the Republic of South Africa. I'm now going to request members of the South African Police Services to come forward and drape the coffin. I'm now going to request the family members ga le ka re tlosa di-risks tsena mo pele mone re kgone tswela pele ka mosebetsi wa rona, just to remove the rift. Leona Ela Itwe. We respect the national flag again. Re a leboga. Okay. I'm now going to request the acting Premier of Gauteng to come forward and do the ecology. And when the acting Premier comes in, may I request all the congregants just to stand to show the respect, excluding the family, to come and address us.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Program Director, the Mvemve family, relatives, friends, neighbors, the leadership of the African National Congress, today led by the Secretary General, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, the SEP's chaplain, Reverend Mashiani, comrades and friends, stalwarts and veterans, distinguished guests, fellow mourners, ladies and gentlemen. The Gauteng Provincial Government is deeply honored to be part of these proceedings to lay to rest the mortal remains of Comrade Adolphus Boy Mvemve. On behalf of the Premier of Gauteng, Mr. Panyaza Lesufi, the Gauteng Provincial Government, and the people of our province, I wish to express more sincere condolences to the Mvemve family on this historic but equally emotionally charged occasion to lay to rest the mortal remains of one of our own. Premier Lesufi regrets that he could not join us today as he is out of the country on work-related commitments. Comrade Adolphus, one of the intrepid freedom fighters of our nation's history, left his country in order to continue the freedom struggle by leveraging the possibilities offered by exile. It is regrettable that he and a number of others could not return to their country alive, both to witness and enjoy the fruits of their sacrificial labors. It is a measure of moral triumph that we are finally reclaiming the mortal remains of one of our own, our brother in struggle who died for a cause that is just. We should all take heart from the fact that his mortal remains return to a free country. This in itself is a validation of the inherent nobility of the cause which they espoused during their lifetime. Despite the fact that his life was snuffed out by the inhuman hand of the apartheid system, the ideals for which men and women like Comrade Adolphus lived have proven both durable and morally unconquerable. Their ideals have watered the tree of liberty, from whose shelter we are all benefiting today. The bomb that killed Comrade Adolphus failed to kill the ideas he embodied, the vision he propagated, and the inspiration he gave to multitudes of the oppressed back home who finally triumphed over this racist system. The defeat of apartheid, the system recognized as a crime against humanity by no less an authority than the United Nations itself, is a vindication of the superior moral claim of the cause for which they gave their lives. Comrade Adolphus and many of his comrades were relatively young when they left our shores, yet they took destiny by the scruff of the neck. In this exercise of paying our last respects to this freedom fighter, our country is honoring those of our countrymen and women who made sacrifices inspired by the deepest ideals. After many years of lying buried in foreign lands, this brave freedom fighter is home to rest in peace among his people. We are pleased that history has ultimately vindicated him and his fellow fighters. Today, history is boldly stating that their sacrifices were not in vain. Program Director, the life of this man we have gathered to pay our last respects to is testimony to the fact that in all of us here, there is a deeply ingrained quest for human freedom. No matter the odds, human beings were born free, and it is in their nature to remain that way. Comrade Adolphus distinguished himself in the pursuit of his political commitment in ways which lend credence to the commitment of his own family. In so many ways, the Mvemve family typifies that spirit to strive for freedom. Comrade Adolphus was born into a family imbued with this noble spirit to assert the fact of their humanity. He imbibed this gallant spirit to fight for the freedom of his people from the family he was born into. His parents chose to fight for the liberation of our country. They chose to be on the right side of history. So did their children, and their grandchildren. This is one of the most exemplary families. And yes, he suffered for daring to question the racist order which sought to reduce the lives of black people to second-class citizens in the land of their birth, their own land. His family taught him to refuse to submit. It taught him to stand up and be counted in the name of the liberation of his people. He would have cultivated a high-level understanding of what it would mean to fight against such an inhuman system. The sacrifice he would have to make, the sacrifices which included foregoing the pleasures of life young people are meant to have. This explains the threat of arrest he faced on his very wedding day, one of the most treasurable moments in anyone's life. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, since the ascendance of a just and democratic order in South Africa in April 1994, it has been a matter of government policy to ensure that all men and women who left the world of the living while fighting for our freedom are repatriated back to their country, South Africa. It is uplifting to note that slowly but surely we are making headway in this painful exercise of bringing back home those of us who could not live to see the fruits of their selfless labor in the form of a democratic South Africa. The implementation of this project is in line with the national policy on the repatriation and restitution of human remains and heritage objects approved by Cabinet in March 2021. The project was officially launched by the State President on the 27th of September 2024 at Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, after repatriation of 42 exhumed remains from Zambia and Zimbabwe. Our sincere gratitude must also go to all the countries which accumulated the South African exile community, which accommodated the South African exile community. They demonstrated the African way, or Ubuntu, by accommodating us during our hour of need. They have often done so at great cost to themselves, as they had to bear the brunt of cross-border attacks by the paranoid apartheid state. In conclusion, once again, I want to thank Comrade Adolphus Mvemve for the spirited and unsparing fight he put up to reclaim our stolen, indivisible humanity. I wish to thank for all his contributions he made for a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and just South Africa. The sacrifices he made are palpable in the daily democratic experience which we so take for granted today. I also wish to thank Comrade Adolphus' family for all their contributions to our country's liberation. We are appreciative of your generosity, and we thank you for that. Now that our brother, comrade, and fellow South African is home to a free country, may his soul rest in eternal peace. I thank you.
I am now going to request Lieutenant Colonel S. Mukise, who is the marshalling officer of this funeral, to come forward and tell us what is going to be expected from us now. We are experiencing a challenge regarding with the cars that are parked outside. Please, the owners of the vehicle, if you can just do us a favor so that we can form up outside there. Please remove the vehicles. Thank you.
Let me greet the fivefold ministry, the pastors in our midst, in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Let me greet the bereaved family of our hero, Mvemve, ngegama lenkosi yethu Jesu Kristu. Amen. Let me greet the acting premier in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Premier, allow me, with due respect, to say all protocol observed. I am Lieutenant Colonel Mkhize. I will be the marshalling officer of this procession. This procession will be led by our chaplains, Chaplain Mashiane with Chaplain Mdau. They will be followed by the bearers, and the bearers will be followed by the pallbearers. Our leading detachment, led by Senior Sergeant Mpele and the Junior Sergeant Labane, will be forming outside, and we request that as we will be marching off, we request that the family will follow our procession from behind, together with the acting premier and other government officials who are present with us here. I further request that as our leading detachment will be formed up outside, please do not walk between them. You rather walk on the side, because we don't want to